Okay, so this is Rigging in Maya 101, and I'm going to create my first rig on Maya. I'm assuming that you have used a little bit Maya and that you know a little bit your way on it. I have some windows here. If you don't know anything or something about what I'm doing, just let me know and I will try to answer your questions. But I'm going to start by creating a cube. I'm going to go to the poly modeling shelf. This is the shelf. I'm going to press the poly modeling. I have other windows here. I have the attribute editor where you can see all the attributes of the object and its dependencies, which means which nodes are connected to your main transform node. I will explain a little bit more about that later. We have the outliner where you can see the hierarchy of your scene. In this case, you have just a flat hierarchy with the cube. And you can see here the attributes of the polycube. Once you create the polycube, you have here this pcube1 with translate, rotate, and scale attributes, and also a visibility attribute that can hide and hide the cube. This is the transform node. Maya is based on nodes, so every time you create something, you're creating different kinds of nodes. I'm gonna go to the window node editor to show you a little bit what is there. Okay, so I have the node editor open, which is here, and this is what it was created when I created the polycube. I can clean the node editor by pressing this button, and if you have it like this, all clear, you can just select the cube and press this button with the two arrows, so it will show you on both sides the connections. And you can find here all the nodes that are connected to the polycube. So that's what the attribute editor is showing you actually. When I select the polycube, it's showing you the pcube shape, which is this one. It's showing you the polycube, which is this one, the initial shading group, which is this one, and also some standard surface, which is the shader that has applied the cube or the material. Anyway, so what we are going to do in this case is we are going to try to create the basic rig for this. And I'm going to talk a little bit about rigging while I do that. So rigging is giving the animator the pivot points or the places where it can move from an object. So in this case, I'm going to move this in translate x, y, 0.5, translate y 0.5. And as I was saying, you're giving controls to the animator in order to move whatever it's in the scene. Usually the controls are curves, so I'm going to go to curves, I'm going to create a circle, and now that you have this NURB circle, this could be your control. And okay, so you have your control, you have your geometry, and you can just parent it. I'm going to go and parent it on it. There you go, it's parented. I can select now the circle, and I have there my basic rig. So this is my first rig in Maya. So you know it's just parenting the cube to the circle, and the circle is the control. So you can select the circle and move it. The idea of having a rig for some simple things like this is because sometimes the geometry is going to change, and you want the animation, the controls to remain the same. So if this was going to be at some point something different, whatever, a sphere, a cube, whatever, and you already animated this, it will be very easy to update the rig and get the new geometry. Maybe it changed names, maybe it changed something. You will deal with that in the rig. But you know that the controls didn't change name, and you know that the controls are exactly in the same position that they used to be. So that is what you do as a rigger. You create controls for the animator to drive geometry, and your idea, or what you are doing, is helping animators to figure out how to do stuff. How did I parent this cube to the NURB surface? I'm going to select the cube, press Shift P to unparent it. Now they are in a flat hierarchy. What I did is I just select the curve, the NURBS curve, and hit the key P, and it will automatically parent. The opposite is Shift P to parent. You can also middle mouse button, you can drag it with the middle mouse button in the outliner on top of the NURB circle, and there you go. You have the parenting also created. Another thing that we do as riggers also is create a hierarchy in this. So for example, I will select this curve and I will press Ctrl G to create the main group. This is just a transform, an empty transform that you cannot see in the viewport, but we could call this rig. So it's a way of organizing your rig. Okay, so you have your rig, which has one control, and it has your geometry, that it's the cube. Another thing that you need to know as a rigger is that everything needs to have a specific name, and you should be careful about how you name stuff. Specifically, I use a name convention that I've been using for many years, which I think it's very simple. The only thing that you need is 4 tokens. So the first token is the side. In this case, I'm going to use C for center. You could use L for left or R for right. Then you write underscore. Underscore. In this case, I said it was going to be C. And I'm going to write the name of the object. In this case, my name of the object, I'm just going to call it main cube. Main cube. If I'm writing multiple words in each token, I'm going to use what it's called a camel case way of writing things, which is every word I'm going to start with a capital letter, except for the first one. And they're going to be together, right? Like here. There is no spaces are allowed, and we are not going to use underscore or anything. So this is the main cube. The next token, well, in the first token, that's the name. In the second token, that's the name. I'm also going to add a number. For example, in this case, I'm going to put 001. What if there is another control? It's going to be the 002. And okay, so there you go, 001. Just so I can write a number, and the next token, it's going to be a system, I call it. And the system is the name of the system of the rig. For example, if I'm building a biped, it will be the arm, and in the arm, the name, it will be the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist, but the system will be the arm because it's part of that rig, you know. So you can split it as much as you want. In this case, my system will be I don't know, I could call it test rig or test rig, whatever. It's just a system name. And then my last token is the kind of object it is. In this case, it's a control, so I'm going to write CTRL. CTRL. It can be capital, it can be not capital. CTRL. And that's it. So it's a name convention based on 4 tokens. These 4 tokens are just to identify easily the things in the rig, and everything should be named. Anyway, and usually I would use that for the geo too. So for example, in this case, if this was going to be the cube, I will just name it cube. Maybe, I don't know what else. And this is not a control, this is a mesh. So I'm gonna write mesh, and there you go. That's my first rig. I hope everything is clear. The things that are important from here is how to parent, how to create empty groups with Ctrl G, how to parent with P, and that you understand that everything are nodes. In this case, you have these nodes: the polycube, the mesh, and the transform. I didn't explain a little bit what these are doing. In case of the polycube, it's the one that each node. People ask me what is a node. Well, a node is just a little program that it's doing something and has inputs and outputs. The inputs are can be whatever you want. In this case, for the polycube, the inputs are values, like for example the depth, the height baseline, and based on those inputs, it generates an output. And the output in this case is the geometry. For example, I could create other geos like sphere, and the sphere has its own polysphere creator, which also has some inputs, and based on the inputs generates the geometry. I could delete easily this polysphere generation. I have the sphere here, as you can see, but now I am going to connect to the shape of this object the output of the polycube. And now I have two polycubes. One is the sphere, and the other one is the cube, and both are controlled by this polycube creation node. You see, because both are connected to this. So that's what a node is. It's just a little program that receives some inputs and gives some outputs. I think, and I didn't told you also what is this shape node. This shape node is just to draw the geometry in the viewport. And the transform node. The transform node is to position. This shape node stores the geometry data. And the transform helps you position the object in the world. That's why it has attributes like inputs like translate, rotate, and scale. And based on that, it will position the object in the scene. As a rigger, also, you're going to need to position controls in a specific place. So going back to what I did before, I'm going to create another cube. I'm going to translate it a little bit up. And imagine that you want to create an animation where you want to roll this cube, right? The original control that we created at the base of the cube wouldn't work anymore, because when we rotate, it will be rotating the cube from the base. So as a rigger, you need to think how to help the animator to accomplish their tasks. For example, in this case, I'm going to move this control to the border. I'm pressing the letter B, which is like pressing this button. And keeping it pressed, I'm going to drag it in the x-axis to snap it to the border. Then I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to press again B, and I'm going to move it up. Okay, so now I have two controls and the main cube. Once again, I'm going to parent this control to this control, pressing P. I have here already the hierarchy. And either I can parent the cube to the NURB circle 2, or I can just drag it on top of it. Yeah, so the cube was parented to this one, and this one was parented to this one. And just to finish, I'm going to press G, Control G, to create a group, and this is going to be my rig group, or my main group. As I was saying, it's very important where and the orientation and the position of the controls. So for example, in this case, if I would like to do this animation, I would have to create the controls in this specific place, so it will be easy for me to create an animation. I'm going to do a very simple animation. I'm going to start selecting this control, maybe rename it. I'm going to name it C Cube rig control. Remember the number 001, and the other one I'm going to name it C Cube 002 rig control. Okay, the cube can be just cube mesh. And let's do the animation. So I select the base circle. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So I'm going to move on in time. I'm going to turn on my auto key. I already set up a key here by selecting the channels, right clicking, key selected. And I'm going to go to frame 50. I'm going to select this and rotate it 90 degrees. At this point, the cube is rotating from the edge. And here I want to rotate from this edge. So I'm going to select this one, key the rotation once again with key selected, move to the next frame, or to the frame 90 maybe, and then rotate this. Okay, another 90 degrees. And I have it there. Now I can have the animation of the cube rotating by the edge. So that's pretty much the work of a rigger, to help the animator creating the right controls in order to make easier his life to create this sort of animation or any kind of animation. I think that's all I'm gonna do with this cube. I hope this was clear. If you have any questions, let me know.